1975. And in fact, last year on the 5th of June, we celebrated our golden anniversary. So it's apt that we have this event today for advocacy and uh, to promote uh, work in the environment 50 years ago really started off by some enthusiastic environmentalists when Singaraja was being felled by the then government, and some environmentalists headed by, at the moment, Irangani Singh, who is still living and is our patron, uh, made their objections, and with that, along with the WNPS, that's how Rukrakagarno was born 50 years ago. So it's a coincidence that it's also World Environment Day today. So to commemorate that, we decided to hold this online talk. If you remember, Rukrakagarno undertook 3 talks during COVID, and we had a very good response till a bit of a calamity took place where a hacker jumped into our website, our Zoom site, and that put an end to uh, our 3 talks. But since then, we have been doing projects. We have 2 projects ongoing at the moment. One is the reforestation project at Sudwelipota on the buffer zone of Singaraja, funded by Keys Hotels. And we also have a beekeeping project at the Habarana Lodge, again funded by Keys. We also have a proposal in the background. That's a butterfly project, which we are hoping to initiate in September. And we will uh, do a model garden in Colombo so as to showcase our work. So welcome everybody to this talk. I We have Aisha
I,
Ratnaka who will moderate this event for
I don't want to
uh,
see. I can do it. That's it.
Sanath's lecture. Uh, so when you're listening to the lecture and if you have any questions, please indicate in the chat box. And at the end, we will have a question and answer time for a dialogue. So without much ado, I would now call upon Aisha to take over the mic, so to speak, and introduce our guest speaker, Sanath. Uh, Over to you, Aisha.
Thank you so much, Rishi. So it's my pleasure to introduce Suneth Herath, who is a Sri Lankan chartered landscape architect and a visual artist with a strong focus on ecological and nature-based practices. Graduated in the University of Warsaw and currently serves as a lecturer in the Department of Landscape Architecture at the same university, where he contributes to teaching and research in ecology-driven design. Alongside his academic work, he is an established artist known for his nature and conservation-focused practice, particularly exploring Sri Lanka's native biodiversity and the impacts of invasive species on fragile ecosystems. His work bridges art, ecology, and landscape painting. He has presented successful solo and group exhibitions in Sri Lanka, including work centered on endemic species and ecological transformation. His practice continues to integrate scientific observation with artistic expression, aiming to raise awareness about environmental change through visual storytelling. So, without further ado, I'll hand over the controls to Sanath Herath. Over to you.
Thank you, Aisha, and thank you, Rukragano, for having me for this lecture. And I'm Sanath Herath, and Aisha, I can share the screen, right?
Yes, you can.
All right. So ecological memories, this lecture I've named as ecological memories because it sort of focuses on my practice as an artist and also as a landscape architect. And throughout this lecture, I'll be discussing about the observation and how it has gone from natural history to ecology and towards conservation. And now to clarify certain stuff. Now here I have mentioned the word ecological art, and also with ecological art, another parallel word that goes is the natural history art. So natural history is it's more of a scientific study of nature, and like mentioned here, it could be animals, plants, minerals, and rather than sort of experimenting with the elements, natural history sort of focuses on the observation. And so with this observation, the area of natural history art was born. And so natural history initially was used to identify and describe and classify certain species and understand their behavior. And at the beginning, it was very much oriented towards scientific development. And in the current context, it has become a form of art. And as you can understand, many centuries back, we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have all these equipment that we use these days. So people had to record, and that was natural history art, and that was the birth of natural history art. So there are two pioneers in natural history art, Leonhard Fuchs and Konrad Gessner. Both of them created huge encyclopedias with a lot of information about different species, different plants, especially Leonhard. He's a German physician and a botanist, and he sort of focused on the use of plants and their parts in medicine. And based on that knowledge, he created his encyclopedias. Now, like I mentioned, it's again, natural history art is based on direct observation. So these are some pioneers in the field of natural history art. Like I mentioned, Leonhard Fuchs and Konrad Gessner, who were the sort of founding father of these fields. Then there's Maria Sibylla Merian, one of my favorite naturalists, Ernest Haeckel, as we all know, and James Audubon, the bird expert, and of course, the Alvis Senvirana family from Sri Lanka. Now, I'll briefly sort of discuss about the work of Maria Sibylla Merian because I think there's so much to learn from her. She was a German naturalist, and by the age of 16, she decided to get into a ship by herself and go to Suriname simply to observe insects and record. And I think it's a excellent lesson for the current generations, because by the age of 16, to get into a ship by yourself, it takes a lot of courage. And then she recorded different insects and their metamorphosis, and up until her findings, people thought insect came from mud. And in fact, Carl Linnaeus used her drawings in the process of classification of insects. And the other one is the Alvis family, which many of the Sri Lankans haven't heard of. And again, 19th century, it's a family who sort of focused on natural history art. And even though we do not know of them, most of their paintings are in Natural History Museum in London. Now, that was natural history art. Now, let's focus on ecological art. Now, ecological art is slightly different from natural history art, and it sort of focuses on the ideas of ecology and how to sort of revitalize the life form that's sort of been disappeared and preserve ecology. So it's more of a thought-provoking field, thought-provoking area, rather than simple observation. And in the fields of ecological art, it is important to find a group of people who will engage with the art. It could be activists, it could be communities, and through ecological art, people, the artists, they try to create awareness about ecosystems, the importance of them, and how to respect nature, and stimulate dialogues, and so on and so forth. So natural history art, where it based on observations, simple observations, whereas ecological art, it can be experimental, and it also focuses on the preservation of ecosystems. So like I mentioned, it goes beyond observation. It can be areas of politics, it can be areas of culture or the economy, ethics related to environment, and not just that, as well as the aesthetic impact. So some of the non-ecological artists would be Agnes Dines, the famous confrontation, the wheat field installation. Then Aviva Rahmani, who did the Blue Rock project. And of course, one of my favorites, Rina Kalat, who did Siamese trees. And in the contemporary art scene, there are many, many ecological artists, and which is a very good thing. And all these artists have been able to create awareness on certain aspects, certain parts of environment, ecology, and from there onwards, going towards preserve the ecology. For an example, Aviva Rahmani's Blue Rock project raised around $500,000 to simply to restore abandoned wetlands. So, so these are the main differences between natural history art and ecological art. So natural history art, it focuses on documentation, classification, and it observes, and the audience would be scientists, naturalists, and the education sector. And it could be easily drawings, illustrations, and emerged from the 16th century and onwards. And whereas ecological art, it focuses on activism, restoration, system change, hopefully, and the audience is much more towards broader public communities, policymakers, and they do not limit just for drawings and illustration. It can be installation, land interventions, performance art, and also focuses on social and ecological justice. And sort of emerged in 1960s and 1990s, and now we are at a different stage of ecological art, where we actually can make a larger impact. So after that, I'll briefly discuss about my artistic journeys. So I grew up in Kandy, in the hills. And from a early age, I was always fascinated with birds, butterflies, and also I remember the struggles sometimes I put up with my parents, simply not letting them cut trees. And, you know, I was always sort of obsessed towards nature. And also my upbringing was also was much more empathetic towards nature. I remember my parents teaching me, do not hit trees, they also have feelings. These sort of, I think, teachings made a huge impact in my life. And then for my tertiary education, I went to University of Moratuwa and majored in landscape architecture. And in that process, I developed an understanding about ecosystems, habitats, ecological process, which sort of changed the way I saw environment. So as soon as I graduated, there was COVID. So it was an isolated time, and I started painting out of curiosity. And somehow I got the spotlight and got the opportunity to conduct a couple of exhibitions, and from there onwards, I was able to create my own career in the artistic field as a natural history or ecological artist. And at the moment, my practice sort of focuses on ecological storytelling and ecological narratives. And if you are familiar with my exhibition, you might have noticed I sort of focus on biodiversity and the conservation aspects of it. So Metamorphosis papilionis ceylonensis is, it was my first solo exhibition, which happened in 2023. And here I sort of focused on the life cycles of butterflies, and not just the basic life cycle where you see the caterpillar and the butterfly and the egg. I did research on their larva food plant, adult food plant. So I tried to create a composition where within one frame, within one painting, you see the complete life cycle, not just life cycle, but also the other attributes attached to the life cycle. And also the metamorphosis of butterflies also sort of reflect the human behavior as well. If you see, if you look at it, butterfly from growing from egg to the caterpillar to the then to the adult butterfly, it's a transition, and we also go through transitions in our lives. And it was a nice symbolism as well. And so here on the left side, you see Ceylon tree nymph, a butterfly that you would see at the entrance of Singharaja. And also if you go towards Riverstone in Matale, you can easily notice this butterfly. And also you might notice that they are black and white, and black and white butterflies in the animal world means they are toxic for the predators. And because of this, you can see this butterfly gliding without a worry, because they know that they don't have any predators. And on the right-hand side, it's the line butterfly, where you can easily find in most of home gardens, where they base their life cycle on citrus plants. And if you observe closely, you will notice the egg somewhere, the chrysalis somewhere, and the caterpillar, and of course the adult butterfly. This is also from the same exhibition. It's a tail-jay and brown pansy butterflies. And if you can notice, most of these plants that we actually see in our gardens and also by the roadside. For an example, this painting on the right-hand side, it's the brown pansy. They generally lay their eggs on a small weed plant called Tridas procumbens. And unfortunately, we generally get rid of it because it's a weed plant. But in order for them to survive, this plant is a necessity. And this was the, so far, the largest watercolor painting I've ever done. Here, if you count, you can see all 31 endemic butterflies in the country. And this was a bit of a fun project to do. And if you sort of divide the painting vertically into 5 columns, you get the butterflies that can be found in different climatic regions, from the flatlands to, so left side of the painting indicates the coastal, and the right corner focusing towards the mountain sides. So if you divide the painting into 5 vertical columns, and you can find butterflies that falls under those the particular climatic regions. This took me days to finish, but then again, one of the largest watercolor paintings I've ever done. And after that, then in 2025, I did an exhibition called Theatre of Serendip Birds, where this was, now the previous exhibition was about the life cycle of butterflies, where in this exhibition, it was more about interrelationship between different species, focusing on birds. For an example, on your left-hand side, it's the Ceylon white-eye endemic bird. They build their nest in cinnamon trees. And if you look closely in one of the cinnamon leaves, you can see a caterpillar. So each of these animals are interconnected. So this exhibition, the Theatre of Serendip Birds, was simply because for me, it's drama. The interrelationship between the different species, it's drama. And if you look closely, you can even see that I have added lichen species that can be seen on the tea plants. And on the right-hand side, it's the crimson-fronted barbet, where they lay their eggs in erythrina trees, also known as erebudu. And you can also see the ficus branches coming from this corner to the other corner of the painting, and also some caterpillars that depends on the ficus trees. So these paintings are like a picture-perfect paint frame. Imagine if all the elements are in the right place at the right time, and you take a picture. So these paintings depict that. Also, these two are from the same exhibition. On your left-hand side is the dusky blue flycatcher who lay their eggs in rhododendron trees, and also the berry that you can see at the base of the tree is one of their favorites. And this whole system can be seen in Hidden Plains. And also the butterflies are endemic, and also they have their own interrelationship between each other. It could be either predator-prey relationship, or it could be mutualism, or it could be parasitism. And on your right-hand side, it's the Sri Lankan grey hornbill. And they tend to have their nest in palu trees, Manilkara hexandra. And I don't know whether you know, when they are about to lay eggs, the female grey hornbill gets into a hole in the tree. And after that, the male closes the hole with mud so that the female can lay their eggs, leaving a small slit to feed the bird. And even after the eggs are hatched, they'll be fed. So during that time, the male counterpart will be feeding both the female bird as well as the fresh hatchlings. And also at the base of the painting, you can see ficus branches, which is one of their favorite foods. And again, from the same exhibition, Theatre of Serendip Birds, and you have the another two endemic birds that can be seen in Sinharaj forest. And on your left-hand side, you can see the Puswell, or the Entarariti, one of the most significant creepers in the Sinharaj forest. And also on the right-hand side painting, you can see the pitcher plant, because that's my first memory of Sinharaj, seeing pitcher plant there and this bird next to it. So that was about Theatre of Serendipitous, which was focused on endemic birds and their interrelationship with other species. Then I participated in a group exhibition, and I did 3 artworks called Eclipse of Natives, and this was focused on the invasive species and their impact on other species. Now, this painting, you can see there's a monochrome black and white part of the painting, and as well as colorful part. So the colorful part is giant mimosa, which has been killing our riverine habitats. And because of that, many of the other birds, amphibians, reptiles lose their habitats, and they eventually die simply because of one wrong plant. And if you observe closely, the black and white, it's a combination of dead animals who gets impacted by giant mimosa plant. And then the second painting of that series, this is what we call it, it's Galgoraka, or Closia rosea, another invasive plants that taking over the central hills, especially in the Hantan region. So what happens, they grow quite fast and replacing native species, and they have a very thick structure that's very difficult to remove, and because of that, little birds, the mountain hares, barking deers, they lose their habitats and they sort of move towards the human habitats, and in that process they face dangers and generally die simply because of a tree. And this is water hyacinth, Japan jabara, again another invasive aquatic plant that has been introduced. And again, you can see in black and white all these species that get affected by the plant, not just fish, but also birds, because once you remove one element from a food web, it affects the whole system. And the problem with this invasive species that it could affect one element, and then the whole food network, it collapses, and that sort of is the starting point of the degradation of ecosystems. And that was the Eclipse of the Natives. And now, before I start a painting or exhibition, I go through a lot of research. For an example, my last exhibition, it took me 1 year to prepare. And out of that 1 year, 6 months or 7 months was simply for the research part. So I have gone through many books. Shown here are some few of them, and many published research articles and interviews with the expertise in the field. Likewise, so each of these paintings, especially if it is an ecological painting, there's a ton of information. There's a lot of research behind it. And so if someone were to ask me, what do I do? Is it natural history art or ecological art? Actually, I do both. Because on certain occasions, I get to do commission art works. And in that process, the client simply asks, okay, I want this element, I want this bird, I want these butterflies. So that would be very much of a natural history painting. And whereas in some other occasions, I get to do the complete correlations between different species, the parasitic aspects of it, mutualistic aspect of it. So that comes to the ecological art part of it. And I'm honored to say that after seeing some of my work, I got the opportunity to work in projects where they focused on getting rid of alien species, replacing introduced plants with native plants. So I'm happy to say, I mean, as a fresh artist, as an emerging artist, I've been able to do some groundwork. I've been able to impress and influence certain people towards the protection of ecosystems. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much, Sanath. We have a few questions for you. So we have a couple of questions from Dominic. So I'll start with Amar's question. He asked, how did these invasive plants come into our ecosystem? Is there a policy set in place to ensure that this does not happen in the future?
There are a few ways that we got these invasive plants. In fact, if you have seen the Colombo wetlands, you may have seen a plant called Vallanoda. Now that actually escaped from a laboratory. And also then the plant that I showed, the giant mimosa and Galgoroka, both of them came with heavy machinery, which was imported to the country. And these seed, they're quite small. So even after a proper, which is not the case, I don't think they ever go through proper quarantine. So all these tiny seeds, they get into our soil, and from there onwards, it's unstoppable. I mean, for an example, guinea grass, it has been introduced as cattle feed, but at the moment, many people spend millions and millions simply trying to get rid of from their coconut states. So that's why we have all these rules and regulations regarding transportation of plant material, and at the moment it's actually at a better place rather than it was many years back. And but then again, few plants which have been introduced to the system, it's already doing a huge negative impact, and our responsibility is trying to get rid of them as much as possible.
Yeah, you also have several compliments coming in as well. Sri Kumar says, interesting and educative, beautiful paintings. Yajit Silva says, very nice paintings. Dominic says, awesome painting, and thank you for the details on the animals themselves. And also wants to know, may I know what brands of watercolor and paper you use?
Sorry, Aisha, I didn't hear the last part of it.
Dominic wants to know what brands of watercolor and paper you use.
Oh, okay. Generally, my go-to art material brand is Winsor & Newton. But depending on the artwork, sometimes I change because certain brands have certain textures and certain colors to the papers, especially papers. So I sort of shift between Winsor & Newton, then Daler and Rowney, and but mostly it's Winsor & Newton.
That answers Dominic's question. Ranma says lantana is a right problem in Asia, affects the national parks such as Udawalawe, and also comments beautiful and interesting paintings. Dominic also is appreciating your response. If anybody else has any questions, feel free. You can either type them or you can feel free to unmute and share them. And if not, then we can. Yes, we have a question from Asho. How do we control or get rid of the invasive plants in Singaraja without using pesticides?
Now, that is a tough situation, but one of the things is that as soon as we get rid of a certain plants, especially an invasive plants, we have to replace it with native plants. Most of the times when the land is vacant, only then these sort of species get hold of the land and grow out of it. But to be honest, there are certain plants that actually grows, like for an example, the Galgoraka. Even if you remove the complete plant and if you leave one bit of the root, it will regrow. So it has to be extensive excavation and removal and burning of the plant, and that's why it costs a lot, especially in if you see in Kurunagal area, to remove the guinea grass from a coconut estate. I think monthly it costs millions. So it's a tedious process. It is a tedious process, and the best option so far we have is to get rid of the plant, and we have to replace it with native species.
Sanath, if I can share Rukrakaganno's experience in the reforestation project, we also had to face invasives which prevented natural regeneration. So what we did was we manually cleared the invasives on the ground, mostly Delania and Cachilla, the fern, and also Alistonia. And as soon as we cleared it, of course, we had to time our clearing to a dry spell, which was January, February, on the Singaraja, in the buffer zone of Singaraja on a place called Suduvalipota. The pioneers took over. And with the pioneers, we planted indigenous species. And the shade which was provided suppressed the regrowth of invasives. That was also like a personal experience I had when doing this project, which is ongoing. And I must invite all who are present today and also you, Sanath, especially to come and see our project, because some of the birds and the vines and the creepers you showed is prevalent in the area which we are reforesting. So just a personal experience from our own project. And Sanath, your pictures and your paintings are really excellent, par excellence, if I can say.
Thank you so much, Ajit. Thank you so much.
So with that, I think we can move to the vote of thanks. So for that, I would like to invite Rukrakaganno committee member Amar Gunathilaka to deliver the vote of thanks. Amar.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, it's my pleasant duty to propose the vote of thanks at the conclusion of this a very enlightening and inspiring tree talk. On behalf of Rukrakaganno, I want to express my sincere gratitude to Suneth Herath for sharing his knowledge, insight, and you presented it with very quiet passion. Actually, Sanath, as you presented and you showed the pictures, I was proud to be a Sri Lankan. I looked at those beautiful insects, the trees, the birds, and I felt, what a beautiful country I'm living in today. And that spark, that inspiration, that pride you gave me and you gave everyone else, I want to specially thank you for that. So as a chartered landscape architect and a visual artist, you brought a unique perspective that helped us to see trees not merely as elements of the landscape, but as living companions, our friends in the ecological system that sustains life. Your presentation actually reminded me and us that trees are not isolated entities. They are part of a larger web of relationships connecting people, wildlife, water, soil, and the climate. Through your observations and reflections, you have deepened our appreciation, as I mentioned before, of the natural world and reinforced the importance of designing and living in harmony with nature. So I also like to thank Ms. Shirani Balasurya, the Honorary Secretary of Rukraganno, for actually organizing today's event and for her tireless commitment to environmental conservation and public education. Thank you, Shirani, and the team of Rukraganno, the opportunity that you gave all those who are present today, and you made this conversation, this presentation, really live with very interesting questions as well. So I must thank all the participants who joined this evening. I believe your presence reflects a shared concern for the environment and a willingness to learn about the trees and ecosystems that enrich our lives. The questions, comments, engagement have, I believe, contributed to the success of this session. And I do hope and sincerely hope that this would be a launching pad for our programs, for our initiatives for the next coming year. So let's also remember that conservation begins with awareness, grows through understanding, and flourishes through action. So today's tree walk has been another important step in that journey. Thank you, Sanath and Shirani and everyone who joined us. And I wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I would like to thank everyone for joining Rukraganno in this tree talk, so to speak. Just to recap some of our events which we are going to have for the rest of the year. We are hoping to have another tree walk at Independence Square and also at the Urban Arboretum managed by Dilma in Moratuwa. Those two events towards the end of the year. And at the beginning of next year, maybe in January or February, a visit to our reforestation site. And Sanath, I have to endorse what Amma has said. It was really an educative and an illustrative presentation, beautiful paintings. And I think we are all very proud of you for you to have achieved such finesse in art in such a short time at a young age. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you again, Shirani, for organizing. By the way, Sanath is a student of Shirani's. Shirani, thank you very much for introducing Sanath to Rukraganno. And I wish you all a good night and thank you for joining Rukraganno. Good night.